Hello, friends, and welcome back to Stories About Entitled People. OP in our first story is petty as hell, but Karen deserves a taste of her own medicine. With people like that, it probably won't do much good, but at least you tried. Karen sends me passive-aggressive notes. I've been in my property for 1 year. Since then, not once has my neighbor, Karen, wished me good morning or even said hello when we crossed paths, or introduced herself when I moved in. Instead, I have 2 passive-aggressive notes through my door, one complaining about crisp packets and sweet wrappers in my front garden. This is actually my other neighbor's disabled son who doesn't know any better. Hi, can you please not throw litter in your front garden? And another just recently about my gate banging in the wind. It doesn't, I checked. Hi, just to let you know, your side gate isn't bolted and bangs during the night. This morning, she had a builder commence building her a new shed at 7:20 on a Saturday morning, crashing wood around and using a loud saw, hammering, waking me up. I know I would have gotten another note for this. I wrote one myself. Hi, just to let you know that a builder was sawing wood in your garden at 7:30 this morning. You may now stop posting passive-aggressive notes through my door. Update. Karen, my estranged neighbor, replied by posting another note through my door. I was not being aggressive. I was just letting you know your gate was unlocked. That was all. The "that was all" had 2 exclamation marks and was double underlined, so I guess this means it's a war. Joke. Funny thing is, she didn't even mention the builders or apologize for the previous notes or this morning's noise. Why mention the noise my gate was making at all if she was just wanting me to bolt it? Why mention the rubbish at all if I can see it right there? I'm not effing Stevie Wonder, Karen. She currently has her boyfriend parked in my second parking space. I don't use it often, but it's the principle to at least ask first. Now that's petty. I should also add that I'm British, and leaving notes through people's doors that you haven't been introduced to or even acknowledge their existence with a slight nod when you cross paths is not the normal neighborly etiquette. And our second story. Do you want a refund or not? So a couple years ago, I bought a Fitbit watch from a large online marketplace. I mostly wanted to buy it from this site because they offered free 2-day shipping. The day the watch is delivered, I get a photo to prove it was delivered. I see the picture of the package, and it's in front of my front gate, which was painted bright green. Normally, packages are placed inside the gate. Why it was in front this time, I don't know. I was working from home, but was actually working, so I didn't see the email telling me the watch was delivered. A couple hours had passed by the time I went out there to get the package, but it was gone. I called the store and told them that the package was stolen and if there was something they could do. The lady said to look around and ask my neighbors to see if they took it. If it didn't turn up, call back and they'd send a replacement. Okay, I asked around, but nobody's seen it. I was alone at the house, but I asked my family if they saw a package. No one saw anything. After 3 days, I called back and they offered to send me a replacement. Perfect. It comes to the house about a week after the other. First watch was delivered. My mother-in-law comes by to have dinner that night. When she shows up, she hands me a package. It was the first watch. My mother-in-law had driven by a week earlier, saw the package and grabbed so no one would steal it, but she forgot to tell anyone, so she actually stole from me. Well, crap. I call the store and tell the customer rep what happened. She said she'd talk to the supervisor and call me back. She doesn't that night, and I make a note to call back. A couple days later, I get an unexpected package from this store. It's a third watch with an apology letter saying that they refunded my card for the full price of the watch. So now I have 3 watches and my money back. I called them and asked to talk to a supervisor. I explained to them what happened, and the supervisor said that they would call me back. I get an email a couple of days later with an apology and confirmation that they refunded my card the full price of the watch again. I call again, talk to a supervisor again, and explain what happened again. He asked if I wanted the refund of my card or store credit. I told him, no, you didn't hear what I said. He says, do you want a refund or not? I hung up the phone. I didn't call back since I didn't want to bankrupt the store. Listening skills, 0. People can get so focused on what they think is the issue instead of actually listening, comprehending, and only then responding to the problem. And our next story. My parents had me when they were plenty young. They were not teens anymore, but had barely left that age bracket.
My mom and dad met in college, and that was also when they had me. So while my parents were in their courses, I mostly stayed with my grandparents. The whole family lives in the same area, and the college was not that far away. My parents were still young and liked to go out with friends on occasion. When the following happened, I was a few years old. On occasion, they frequented a bar. A drunk guy there groped my mom and did not take a no as a no. My dad intervened and stopped the guy, and half an hour later, all seemed forgotten. The music was loud, the bar was crowded, and then someone in the crowd hit my dad with an empty glass pitcher square in the face. He was bleeding profusely and collapsed. But in the press, semi-darkness, and over the music, no one knew who did it. My dad got taken to the hospital. He had a broken nose and a heavy concussion. He also couldn't see who had attacked him, and his memory between the alcohol and being hit in the head was also very fuzzy. Of course, they had considered the guy who'd harassed my mom, but they didn't know him, nor did they see him anywhere leading up to the moment, let alone have any evidence. So they pressed charges against unknown. There was virtually nothing anyone could do. Then a few days later, the piece of crap that had harassed my mom approached her on campus. Turns out he was in the same college as my parents. He made a few veiled comments and left little doubt that it had been him that hit my dad in the face. And the piece of garbage let my mom know that my dad next time should mind his manners, and that the little touching he'd done didn't hurt anyone and wasn't that bad. And if he wanted to do it again, he would, and maybe more. Then the piece of crap went on his merry way. My mom was horrified, of course. She went home and told my grandparents, my dad, his parents, but no one could do anything. It was a he said, she said deal after all, and my mom hadn't even gotten the guy's name. My mom cried a lot at the time and didn't know what to do. She also was afraid of going to classes or out alone. I honestly only remember that time very scarcely. I was just a little kid. But I can remember my dad in the hospital with his broken nose and my mom crying a lot. My dad, of course, was just as angry and humiliated as my mom. No one knew what to do, and everyone was treading on eggshells around each other. This is where my uncle enters the stage. My uncle, my mom's brother, lived on the other side of the country. He was a PI, and he was, of course, the last to hear the full story. But the moment he heard someone had threatened his little sister, he was on his way home. After hearing the full story, my uncle knew it would likely be hard to get the guy on the harassment, the assault, or the threats, having no evidence. My uncle had my mom point the guy out from afar on campus. It took a few days to find him, but then my uncle started to stalk that piece of human filth. My uncle took sick days, all his vacation, and invested every possible second to finding out everything about the harasser. My uncle even approached the pig in another bar and became drinking buddies with him. Over several weeks, my uncle had uncovered all manners of illicit behavior, possession, consumption, and distribution of drugs, theft, and a few other misdemeanors and small-time stuff, and my uncle could have put him away for that. But my uncle always said, when asked about it, that if he sent the a-hole to prison, it'd be for molesting my mom and hurting my dad. And that's what he did. One night, while out with his new buddy drinking, my uncle made the idiot piss drunk, and they landed in my uncle's motel room. He got the harasser to incriminate himself on video, rattling off a list of illegal crap he was up to. My uncle had, of course, pretended to be a crook, too. Among the stories a-hole told was the story of how he groped some chick and brained her dude with a pitcher of beer. Now, something needs to be said. In my country, of course, recording someone in secret is illegal, and under some conditions, like if the police do it, it's not permissible as a piece of evidence in court. But as a PI, my uncle knew that law exactly. But paradoxically, the situation is different if it's not only audio but also video. And my uncle had the a-hole on camera confessing. The next day, my uncle turned himself into the police with all his collected evidence because secretly filming people was still a crime. Though the video could be used as evidence in court, as my uncle was not affiliated with the police or any other governmental agency. When the criminal trial and civil trial were over, the a-hole got 6 years in prison and had to pay damages to my mom and dad. My uncle got slapped with the equivalent of a $2,000 fine for secretly filming the a-hole. Money well spent, he always said.
And our last story. Town forced to bulldoze new development after building on land they don't own. I've got one gem of a story that my grandfather told me about his hometown after he came home from World War II. At the end of World War II, thousands of troops were heading home, starting new families, and wanted to move out of the city. There was a major housing boom all around the country. People couldn't move out of the cities fast enough, and developers couldn't build homes fast enough. There was a ton of money to be made in the construction business, which led to some underhanded building practices. One such practice was starting construction before the land acquisition was finalized. Enter my grandfather, G. After serving as a pilot during the war, he came home to a very different town. When my G went off to fight in 1942, the town that he described leaving was tired and worn down. But to his amazement, the town he saw stepping off the train in 1948 was anything but. Newly paved roads, a traffic light, and new homes that just went on and on. But he actually got lost on his way back to the family farm due to the new main town road being rerouted while he was away. But what took him by surprise the most was the new development being built on his childhood friend John's tree farm. This was surprising to him mainly because he knew how much the farm meant to John and his family. The farm went back at least 2 generations, but my G just guessed that the developer made John's family an offer too good to refuse. However, that thought was shot down later that evening during his welcome home dinner back home. It was my great-grandmother who tipped him off that something was off. He couldn't recall exactly what she said, but it was something along the lines of, "Oh, I just wish John was still alive to be here." My G nearly choked, not because of the news, but because John was not dead. He was still in Hawaii. My G had gotten a postcard from him not but 4 days before. Turns out, while John was off in the Navy fighting in the Pacific Theater, John's dad had suffered a stroke and passed away, and his mother passed away less than a week later from a broken heart. More than likely, John was never informed of their passing, and now 20-plus homes were being built on their land. My G ran out of the house, jumped in his father's Model T, and raced into town to send one bombshell of a telegraph to John in Hawaii. "John, your folks passed. Farm now being built on. Come quick. G." My G never got a response back. He figures that John must have fainted from shock, then jumped up and ran to the Navy base to get on the first boat home, because he was back home in less than 4 days, and he was mad. According to my G, when he burst through the doors of the mayor's office, everyone in the room looked like they were about to drop dead. The poor desk clerk was fumbling over his words, trying to talk to John. Then the mayor came out of his office to see what all the commotion was about. As soon as he saw John, he went white as a sheet, then ran back into his office and locked the door. Getting nowhere at the mayor's office, John went to the next town over and hired a lawyer. What followed was a 7-year court case that ended in the mayor being sentenced to 8 years in jail and the developer going bankrupt. Turns out that after John's parents passed away, John wasn't able to be contacted for some reason and was just assumed dead. So when an out-of-state developer wanted to build homes in the area, the mayor just permitted them to start building on John's farm for a hefty kickback, of course. Also, because of John's lawsuit, the developer couldn't finish the pre-sold homes, which ended up in more lawsuits. In the end, the mayor and the developer and the town ended up having to pay John close to $45,000 total, which is over $752,000 today. And then the farm had to be returned to its prior condition. To say John was happy would be a vast understatement. Today, John's Tree Farm is a nature reserve, and the story of the corrupted mayor is all but forgotten except by a few locals. John passed away in 1999. My G's been back to his hometown a few times to visit his grave and check on the old tree farm. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.